After an interesting race in Concord, the Bootleg Racing League is ready for a time. It's a track that has been tested by even the best drivers in the series, but with the pressure on, who will take home the checkered flag tonight? We're about to find out on the Global SimRacing Channel. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual North Wilkesboro Speedway for the third race of Season 7 for the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series, presented by Gargamel's Kitchen. It is also Race 5 of the 2021 Moonshine Challenge. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside with the booth tonight is Joey Tebben. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. When it comes to this racetrack, it brings plenty of challenges, to say the very least. Let's learn more about this facility with our GSRC track guide.
North Wilkesboro is a legend in the world of NASCAR, the very first NASCAR sanctioned track. Before falling into the clutches of NASCAR's expansion of the mid to late 90s, NASCAR Cup cars made 2 trips here a year. Petty, Allison, Waltrip, Earnhardt, Bonnet, Gordon. The list of winners here reads of NASCAR's legends. North Wilkesboro opened as a dirt track, having the same shape that it does to this day. In the late 50s, it was paved. This is when it became the track we know of today. This 5/8 mile oval is known for keeping a lot of speed on entry into those 14-degree bank corners. For a long part of NASCAR's early years, this was one of the fastest short tracks around, and with it, the unique characteristic, partly a result of lack of funds when they first cut the track. You go downhill on the front stretch and uphill on the back stretch. Also, the 2 corners aren't the same radius, but you might not notice that as much at speed. While North Wilkesboro is mostly known for Cup cars, other NASCAR divisions ran here over the years. Grand National had a few races. The trucks were here for 2 races before the Speedway shut down. Modifieds also made some trips to North Wilkesboro. In the attempted restart in 2010, several late model and super late model series held races here, but it wasn't to be, and the Speedway fell silent. Until now. Thanks to the efforts of Dale Earnhardt Jr. and iRacing, North Wilkesboro breathes life again in this virtual world, as it did in 1987. Now it's time for the Blue Ridge Mountains to hear the thunder again here on GSRC.
That's a look at your GSRC track guide for North Wilkesboro Speedway. Now, Joey, this track is very special when it comes to this series and when it comes to the iRacing platform as one of the first throwback tracks essentially on the service. Your thoughts on this racetrack for this car combination tonight?
Well, this is as close as you can get for having a track that was really made for these cars. It's a perfect short track. It's very unique. It doesn't look necessarily that unique on the surface. 0.63 miles, 1 kilometer, 14 degrees in the corners, but where you see the most uniqueness in this track is when you see it from a side view, and especially when you view it from inside the car. It's essentially on a hill, so it slopes down on the front straight and it slopes back up on the back straight, which you don't really see it.
Work their way around this facility and in turn challenges them around this 0.63 mile oval. Now, before we continue, let's bring in our title sponsor for this series, Gargamel's Kitchen. Gargamel's Kitchen is a food-grade nitrous oxide provider located in Denver, Colorado, and a proud sponsor of the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series. Visit their office at 2045 South Valentia Street or give them a call at 720-707-6178. With that, let's take a chance to look towards your point standings after the first couple races, where it's Justin Morton and J.R. Shepard who have taken the victory so far this season. Matthew Thunhorst has been right up there, though, with him in those battles for positions. 3 points behind in the standings. Austin Belke, Donnie Moore, and Lowell Jewell round out the top 5 in the standings. It also just so happens to be the 5th race of the Moonshine Challenge tonight, where J.R. Shepard holds on to that standing lead by 11 points over James Lowe, followed by Justin Morton, Austin Belke, and Donnie Moore. With that, let's take a look at our race details tonight as we get ready to go racing once more, Joey.
There'll be 100 laps around North Wilkesboro. No tire changes, though. So you've got to have the same tires you started on. There is one fast repair, which in these ARCA cars with the new damage model, that'll definitely be very helpful because there's whole new ways to get damage in these things. And when you're at a track that actually has decently long straights for a short track, you're definitely going to want to get damage fixed when you can. It's only round 3 of the season, so the championship standings aren't too separated, but there is still a grid inversion. The top 8 from the last race will be inverted, so 8th will start first will start 8th, and everything in between.
And to look back towards the Moonshine Challenge, for those who do not know, this series has a separate championship for the races at Martinsville Speedway and North Wilkesboro Speedway, where drivers score various points throughout the season. As mentioned, J.R. Shepherd has swept those races so far. He's been very difficult to beat, to say the very least, when it comes to North Wilkesboro. He's been lightning quick from the get-go here at this facility, Joey.
On top of the timesheets right now, and this is really one of the most difficult short tracks to master. The lines seem so counterintuitive. The ways to run that would be fast at some other tracks just straight up don't work here. But J.R. Shepherd has it figured out. He's the only driver in the 18.7s right now in practice. Everybody else in the 18.8s and lower. He navigates the number 6 car of Kurt Smith, having a little bit of trouble on exit here. But just look at the way J.R. Shepherd takes turn 1. He doesn't clip the grass necessarily. He did that on the lap before, so I think he kind of wants to. You see him get super low in turns 3 and 4, and just goes to show that these two corners are not exactly the same. You have to run them completely differently.
Yeah, this is so challenging when it comes to driving this facility and making sure you get that proper line here for tonight. As these drivers continue their final practice, it is Shepherd on the top of the board, followed by Steven Spies, Matthew Thunhurst, Austin Belkey, Adam Shane. As we take a look at one of the drivers towards the bottom of the pylon, this is Justin Morton, you see, and he's running with VR tonight, Joey.
He is running with VR, so he's got to be careful. We're going to be driving in a lot of circles tonight. You don't want to get dizzy. You don't want to get in G-lock, essentially, because that's an easy way to get yourself sick. But Justin Morton, an experienced driver in the ARCA car, so he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing in VR. Unfortunately, he is down at the bottom of the timesheets at the moment, but he comes to the pits and he's going to try and work out a little more speed from that car. He is in that's the number 19 car you see on your screen right now of Lowell Jewell. That's the only car behind Justin on the timesheets right now. But we can see these drivers, a lot of them are running different lines. Some of that's just because of the traffic here in practice, but I think some of that might just be some drivers haven't quite figured this place out yet in practice.
Keep in mind, some drivers also prioritize the long run for their speed in practice for long run pace compared to the short run pace because of those no tire changes. So we follow along with Matthew Thunhurst. He's going to be one of the drivers to watch for tonight because it was an up and down race for him at Concord, and he has the opportunity to try and hold on to potential track position with the invert. It's going to be curious to see what he does because he, Shepherd, and Morton have been on top of each other pace-wise in the first 2 races, near identical lap times when it comes to the races themselves at both Nashville and Concord.
Yeah, if I'm calculating correctly, Thunhurst will start 5th, or 6th actually, because he's 3rd in the championship right now. He'll start 6th, so it's further back than he'd like to be, but he definitely has quite a bit of pace in that car right now. It looks like he's only 1,000th off Steven Spies in 2nd, and
to give a quick correction there, he finished 5th in the last race, which puts him into what would be 4th place in version Joey. Since it goes off the last race.
Yeah, that is correct. The last race he finished there, so it's better than it would be if we were inverting the championship points. But as it is only round 3, you see the race results and the championship results aren't too different. There hasn't been too much time for the standings to separate out too much necessarily. So the drivers we're seeing on the top of the championship are also the drivers who we've been seeing competing at the top of these races for the whole of the season. Here's Justin Morton on your screen. He has
board in the later stages, so that's something to keep an eye on for tonight. But you mentioned how difficult the racing line is going to be here for this evening. How in turn do you try and keep yourself to where you have the tires underneath you without burning up your equipment on the long run here as a result? because this is a track that also just so happens to eat tires like they're for breakfast?
That is a very good question, and that's going to be probably one of the main storylines we see throughout the race today. Will some drivers go for a higher line to use the tires up a little bit less, but be quite a bit slower? Because when you're in the groove at North Wilkesboro, that's the fastest way around. If you're out of the groove, you are absolutely miles behind the race pace, and you're not going to be able to keep up with the fastest cars. So I think we're still going to be seeing drivers run the one groove that we know works. It's going to be very abusive to their tires, but they're going to have to make that work. It's going to be the same for everybody, and maybe it'll come down to who has the entry speed, who has the exit speed correct, even if they are running the same line. But either way, tire fall off is going to be very important, and we'll see who is the best at that over the long run.
One of the things that is going to come into play as a result to be able to make sure you keep the tires is going to be the weather conditions too. 74 degrees Fahrenheit is your air temp. Most of quality skies, 95 degrees Fahrenheit is your track temp at the moment, with the winds currently gusting to the northeast at 3 to 4 miles per hour. 50% humidity on iRacing Day, May 15th, 2021 in sim time, approaching 4 p.m. In turn, it's around middle of the road when it comes to the temperature, so that comes into play for tonight to help out with that tire wear just that little bit for this evening.
Yeah, they probably want it to be a little bit colder, maybe in the 80s or the 70s Fahrenheit. But like you said, it is right in the middle, so it's not going to completely melt the tires. They're not going to be driving on a pool of melted rubber, but it is definitely going to be suboptimal for keeping the car under you for 100 laps today. I'll tell you what I've just seen. Austin Belke, he's brought it down to an 18.800, so he only needs a couple more thousandths, and he'll be right in the 18.7s with J.R. Shepard. So it's they only do 20 minutes of practice here, but I assume some of these guys, or all of these guys, have taken some practice laps over the course of this week to figure this place out, and the field only separated by a total of about 2.5 tenths. It's from an 18.787 to a 19.043. So, as usual with these guys, it's high levels of competition, high levels of parity, and I think this is going to be a heck of a race.
Keep in mind that they've had 2 other races tonight in 2 different types of cars, too, throughout the evening, where it was Belke who came away with the victory in the late model series for 40 laps here at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Then the Pro Truck Series at the track for 70 laps, Matthew Thunhorst took that checkered flag. So they do have some time earlier in the evening, but in different types of vehicles and equipment. So we'll have to see how they handle the Grand National Series cars this evening, of course, Joey, as they're down to the final moments of practice. Your final thoughts before we head towards the grid?
Well, the late models and the trucks, they're pretty different from the ARCA cars. They're not the most different things in the world. I'd say the late model is probably more similar to the ARCA car than the truck, if anything. But it's definitely going to be an adjustment as they move into driving this car. Matthew Thunhorst in the dying seconds goes 1,000th of a second slower than J.R. Shepard. But this is going to be a great race, I think, and hopefully we'll get to see the grid in a few moments.
Yes, indeed, those drivers are just about all set to roll their cars to the starting grid for tonight's action. And it's going to be interesting to see how our drivers fare out. In total, 7 of the drivers involved in the inversion are here tonight from last evening's top 8, or last week's, I should say. Here is that starting grid. Lowell Jewell will start alongside Ryan Seneker, with Bruce Pearson and Matthew Thunhorst in row 2. Austin Belke and Justin Morton will start in row 3, with J.R. Shepard and Joe Sagawa rounding out the top 8 starting positions. Donnie Moore and Todd Liston, who did get a warning for a dive bomb from last week's race, rounds out your top 10, Joey.
Then Steven Spiess, very fast in practice. We'll see him make his way up the field probably from 11th. Then Mike Holloway not too far off either. And Adam Shane and Kurt Smith round out this 14-car grid that well and truly is anybody's game. We got some fast drivers at the back. We got some fast drivers at the front. Nobody's really slow, but that inversion has produced different dynamics. Some of the drivers who weren't at the top of practice are at the top of the field, and we'll see where everybody meets in the middle.
I'm very curious to see who can come away with the checkered flag here at North Wilkesboro. Keep in mind, live timing and scoring is available for tonight's race at gsrc.tv to follow along with your favorite teams and drivers. Here's a look at Austin Belke and his onboard view. You can see him with a different t-shirt today, a bit of a tie-dye look, as he'll be starting on the inside of row number 3. And as we get ready to go here, Joey, your quick keys to victory.
Well, like we talked about for all of practice, key to victory is going to be keeping those tires under you. It's going to be keeping your car undamaged, and it's going to be staying in the groove, because that is the only way you're going to be staying up front, and you don't want to get shuffled back around here.
It's the boss man, Lowell Jewell, in control of the field, with Ryan Seneker to the outside. Green flag is out. We're underway from North Wilkesboro.
Absolutely incredible jump from Lowell Jewell. He's got about a car length and a half to second place Ryan Seneker, who's already getting squeezed out of the groove.
And already Matthew Thunhorst going for the lead in turn 1. Lowell Jewell trying to run the outside. Justin Morton trying to follow Thunhorst. Thunhorst dives it in deeper on the brakes by a good 6 feet. And now takes the race lead away already on lap 2.
And there you see the absolute dominance of that preferred bottom line. Lowell Jewell just not even able to stay alongside. There is truly like no run to the outside around this track. It's very unique, but that is going to play into this race all night. You want that bottom line. Now we see Justin Morton up to second. See the 24 car of Austin Belke can make the outside work, but he actually might be able to, because the 61 on the bottom is really struggling down there. I think he might have clipped the grass, because he is very slow on exit.
He nearly spun it around, I think, in turn 1, in fact. That's how loose he was, and it's so easy to get loose if you send it too much into the corner. He ran all the way down by the grass, and in turn opened up the door for Belke and Shepard to drive on by. He is now back in 6th position. That also pulls Bruce Pearson back to 7th position in the battle for the last spots inside the top 8. But already, Thunhorst and Morton with a big advantage over Belke and Shepard when it comes to the championship favorites early on this season in terms of track position by around 7/10, with Lowell Jewell still as that meat in the sandwich, so to speak.
I tell you what, riding on board with Ryan Seneca for the last couple corners, last couple laps, I think he might have his brake bias a little bit off. I don't think he looks especially comfortable, because he overcooked turns 3 and 4 a couple times, went very deep, got a little bit loose on entry. He seems to have it figured out now, but that was not looking like he was having a lot of fun in the car there. He might have moved it forward a couple clicks, move it back a couple clicks, whatever's making him comfortable. He's got back in the rhythm now in 6th, but he has quite a little bit of ground to make up to the next car. J.R. Shepard is over half a second up the road.
Lowell Jewell's doing a really good job, I have to say, though, on this short run to be able to keep up with the front runners. He's still within 1 second of Matthew Thunhorst. The question is, can he keep it up past lap 20, lap 25? That's where the tire fall off really starts to kick in.
We're going to cross the line for lap 10 here, and while the tire fall off does start to kick off on about lap 25, you're still going to be feeling a teensy little bit right about now as we get into the run. It might only be 1 or 2 or 3%, but if you've been super aggressive on these first couple laps, it's already probably going to start coming back to bite you. And we'll see what happens with Lowell Jewell. Austin Belke, we know, was a little bit faster in practice to the tune of about 2.5 tenths. But right now he has a bit of a gap, about 7/10, and Belke doesn't seem to be closing that yet. So I wonder if Jewell is just giving it everything he's got. His pace right now actually looks pretty solid compared to everybody else in the top 3, and Belke maybe just hanging back a little bit.
Austin Belke, known for being one of those drivers who likes to save his tires for the long run. He puts a lot of emphasis on that, as talked about in practice. Keep in mind, has that formula wheel as well on his machine. As interesting, you see a bit of a stack of boxes now towards his right side here for today. See, nice and smooth though on the bottom thing, Joey.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The steering wheel is barely moving. I thought the camera might just be frozen with how little he's moving that thing, but he has this track figured out. He's in the groove. He's basically just driving around in circles. He's got nothing to worry about. He's got cars half a second ahead and half a second behind. Right now, he's just running his own race. Lowell Jewell just got a little bit squirrely on exit ahead of him, so I think they might be meeting here in the battle for third in a few moments. Gap on your screen, if you look up on the ticker, it's about 6/10 now. It's been stuck at 6/10 for a while, but now it's down to a little bit under 6/10. It's down to 5/10. He's definitely moving up.
Very impressive indeed so far, with Bossman still keeping within 1.2 seconds of Dunhorst, who is still setting the fastest times on the racetrack, keep in mind. In the 19.2, some drivers have fallen off to the high 19.3s in regards to the fall off so far. And the track temp, keep in mind, is starting to plummet a little bit with these clouds. It's down to 92 degrees Fahrenheit.
It's definitely cooling down. That'll be good for some of these drivers that might be overheating their tires a little bit. Like Ryan Seneker, he might have overcooked him a little bit. He might have been struggling with overheating. But if you've been sending it into the corner too hard, you've been too hot on the brakes, those tires are going to be screaming at you a little bit, and it's hard to cool them down in a track like this where you're basically turning the entirety of the time. But a little bit of a cooler track temperature, a little bit of cloud cover, drivers are definitely going to be happy about that right now. J.R. Shepard is getting close to the back of Belke, and Belke's getting close to the back of Jewell, who gets out of the groove a little bit there. These three are going to meet in the battle for third momentarily. We cross the line for lap 20. We're already a fifth of the way through the race. It's going to get very interesting as the tires start to fall off. We saw Lowell Jewell have a little bit of trouble on entry there. He goes a little bit deep. Austin Belke still able to keep it pinned to the bottom. And I tell you what, he might be able to go for the move soon. In turn one, he had the bottom, almost the outside. He's to the bottom now. Can he pull alongside? I think he's clear.
Able to get side by side into three, and does indeed clear by in turn four. J.R. Shepard now side by side for fourth position. And keep in mind, J.R. Shepard has been dominant here in the past, as talked about, but so far, keeping things nice and patient in the early going. He's known as someone who's been a wizard when it comes to saving the tires. He's someone that's been able to dominate by leading more than half the race here in some of his victories at this track in this series, Joey. In others, he's been able to take the victory later on in the race with under 30 to go, but this time he's in the wall.
Yeah, that is not going to help him at all. But we do have that fast repair, so if he had a caution, he might want to come in and get that fixed. That'll be a lot of track position lost for him, though. I don't think anybody will pit. But here's the battle for P7. Speaking of drivers sending it into the corner, Pearson deep into the corner, and he's got a whole train of drivers, hungry drivers coming at him now.
One of them is Spees, who is trying to utilize the outside groove down the front straightaway, which you can use to squeeze drivers down. He's been able to pass by Todd Liston by utilizing that groove, but gets a bit loose. Nearly came across Todd Liston's nose there, and Adam Shane trying to take advantage to now attack that 87 machine.
Good on Todd Liston for getting on the brakes there. That was almost disastrous, but now he's stuck up on the high side. Number 65, Adam Shane, not quite close enough to get on the bottom. I tell you what, as the tires have worn out, that top groove is starting to work out just a little bit. On the outside, it's a longer line, it's less tight of a line. The drivers that are getting squeezed to the bottom having a little bit more trouble keeping the speed up down there.
And that's going to be a very critical line as this race goes on. If you can get yourself side by side. It was a line being tried a few laps ago by Bruce Pearson. He couldn't get it to work, though, against Ryan Seneker in turns 1 and 2. It's a better line, though, we've seen in the past in 3 and 4. Speaking of Bruce Pearson, he's dropped from 3rd to 7th, still trying to hold on to this grouping. What do you think's weighing through his mind right now with all these cars battling, and especially knowing he's got an opportunity in front with Seneca, who continues to bobble around on corner exit?
Well, he's definitely more focused on Seneca, I would think, than the drivers behind, because he knows if he can get by him, he'll have a little bit of a buffer to this hungry train behind. Steven Spies and Joe Segala, well, Steven Spies especially, we saw him get hugely loose exiting turn 2. He's having a little bit more trouble than Joe Segala is. There you see him again, stepping out just a little bit. Segala just keeping it straight, a little bit less aggressive maybe, a little bit better on the tires, but either way, it looks like Pearson's in a little bit of a sandwich here. He can't get by the car in front, and the car behind can't get past him. Might get a little bit frustrating, but he's just gonna have to capitalize here whenever, or if ever, the 61 makes a mistake, gets out of the groove. He's got to send his nose in there and make that pass.
We'll see if he's going to be able to send it this time. No, not close enough. Still within a few car lengths to be able to try and close up to get the run fully, but definitely that right rear tire looking worse for wear so far on Seneca's machine, as this time he tries the top. And this time he nearly loops it around. To the inside wall he goes for the first caution flag of the night.
Yeah, he didn't nearly loop it around. I say that was about 51% of a loop around. 33 out of 100. We made it exactly a third of the race before someone finally lost it. He didn't get any help. Just got on the throttle too hard, I think. This is exiting turn 2. Everything looks perfectly fine. He's got a mirror full of a large train of cars, but on exit, just a little bit too hard in the throttle, and then there's no saving that. And that's hard concrete on the inside. I think he'll be taking his fast repair.
A hard crunch to the front nose for our first caution flag of the night, and makes things interesting for those who may have been saving tires in the front grouping of cars. Seneca now 14th. But the main thing I'm keeping my eye on now is how drivers like Belke, Shepard, and Morden now fare, and if they were able to save enough tire to be able to try and pounce on this restart. Shepard was starting to set the fastest lap times on the track right before the caution flag.
And he had a little bit of right front damage. We saw him from tapping the wall. So if he's still got all that speed, he has no reason to get that fixed. Went from 7th to 4th. He's definitely up there in the fight now. But Austin Belke ahead of him, very fast in practice. We know he has a lot of pace. The leader, Thunhorse, we know he has a lot of pace. So it's not going to be a cakewalk for Shepard, even if he has been saving his tires, which we know he has. We'll look at the back of the pack here. Will Seneca, yeah, Seneca has not actually taken his fast repair. I thought he would be coming down immediately to take that, but no, he's still staying out.
Well, some drivers, you have to think, try and bank it just in case a big one does happen, because at times there have been collisions that have involved multiple cars here at this track in this series, several times in fact.
That is true, and he did spin to 14th with that damage, so he's already last. So I guess maybe he thinks, you know, I'm already back here, might as well stay back here, and if there's another caution, get that fast repair, move up a couple spots, and then straight back in the fight. But we'll see if we do get another caution. He's down from 2nd to 14th, so I guess the only way is up either way, if he pits or not, but they're stacking up 2x2 here. They haven't been 2x2 since the start of this race. Justin Morton and Thunhorse, they started 4th and 6th, so they don't have any experience starting up on the front row today. So this will be interesting.
Those two we know work together when it comes to their sim racing escapades, and both of them have had some strong speed early on. They've been 1-2 since about lap 2 of this race. Got a racing pace car ready to peel off. Green flag is up. Great launch for Thunhorse. We're back on our way with the bottom line, checking up behind Austin Belke a little bit.
Yeah, Belke super slow on the launch there. I don't know if he got wheel spin or missed a shift or what, but he very well could have been on the inside of J.R. Shepard into turn 1 and just didn't work out. Got a little bit bogged down, but the top 3 absolutely glued together. J.R. Shepard, a very good start. He's all over the back of Justin Morton. He's not going to be able to make the pass just yet.
Shepard is sending it deeper into the brakes, though, to try and gain up some ground. They've already built up a gap of half a second between Shepard and Belke on the racetrack as they still fight behind them, several rows deep, too wide.
Yeah, you'd think it was a pace lap from 5th to the back of the field. The 81 and the 55 of Segala and Spies practically glued together side by side. I thought they were making contact. Did not happen, but they're just still moving 2 by 2 by 2. The top line not working, the bottom line not working. Just stuck together. Nobody can make up any ground. Now they're starting to stratify out a little bit. The 87 of Todd Liston working on the high side. This is crazy stuff back here.
Very crazy indeed, and keep in mind Speeds having to charge his way from the back of the field, doing an impressive job up 4 positions, looking to make it a race-high 5 if he can make the move on Bruce Pearson to rip away the 6th position. He does, and move Speeds up inside the top 6.
But we know Spees has been getting loose quite a bit this race, so Bruce Pearson can't give up hope just yet. Oh, he almost can now. That was a big moment for Pearson. Lucky to not spin it all the way around. Adam Shane doesn't hit him. We're going to go to a replay here. We've seen a lot of loose moments today, but that was probably the biggest one other than the spin into the wall that brought out the caution. Did he get any help? No, he lost it completely on his own.
He actually did bounce off the front nose of Adam Shane, though, so have to keep an eye on Shane to see if that affects his car, as Bruce Pearson is now a -7 on the race. Kurt Smith, Todd Liston, Mike Hallway, all trying to make moves as there goes Pearson. Around he goes for the caution.
Yeah, that was a very, very strange dive bomb. I think that was Kurt Smith in the 6. Absolutely sent it in there from, seemed like miles back. I don't think that was ever going to work. He's on the bottom, Pearson on the top, and then, yep, just slides up, and that'll be Bruce Pearson around. Not a great sequence of laps for the 22 car. He's been hit twice now. I don't think there's too much damage on that car, actually, so we'll see if he comes in and takes that fast repair. But, yeah, not much to see there, just bonk, and then the 6 takes a bite out of the grass, but Holloway, great avoidance, and makes it through without a scratch.
Very impressive indeed for the number 2 machine to make it through unscathed, as we are approaching the halfway mark of this race already. 2 caution flags so far. And now I'm really intrigued to see what happens with Shepard on this upcoming restart, because he's now in 3rd. And now it's the championship favorites 1, 2, 3 throughout the running order with Dunhorst, Morden, and Shepard.
And we're going to have halfway, or we're going to be halfway. We're going to have half of the race to go. So they're going to have to turn the wick up a little bit, get a little bit more aggressive. As further back in the field, Kurt Smith has gone in. He's taken his fast repair, potentially. Or he's going to exit out of the race. And I hope he doesn't do that. I think he's just coming in to take his fast repair. I wouldn't think he would have too much damage from hitting Pearson, but clearly he thought it was a good idea to come in, get that car repaired, and he will restart at the back of the field.
You can also get manual repairs. Keep in mind, he did stay in the box for 4.8 seconds. Didn't appear to use fast repair. He still has some scuffs on his front bumper. In regards to Smith, he's the first driver all night to come to the pit lane. But the drivers are getting the 1-to-go signal. It's Dunhorst and Morden, Shepard and Belke, then Lowell Jewell, who's still having a very impressive race in 5th, with Steven Spies in 6th. Joe Segala, Adam Shane ran out the inversion spots. Todd List and Donnie Moore are knocking on the doorstep of breaking their way into the top 10 to try and battle for next week's pole position. Now the drivers revving their engines, getting ready for this restart. A very tough restart box here at North Wilkesboro with how quick it is. Justin Morden this time times it up perfect on the outside. Keeps it side by side into turn 1 to the doorstep on the side of the number 8 machine. Morden keeps it side by side. Shepard tries to find a hole towards the outside to join Morden for the side by side for the lead.
And you can see the difference from the start of the race. The outside did actually work for Justin Morton. He was able to get a run, but now he falls back into 2nd. They're going 1 by 1 now, and J.R. Shepard's now going to go to the bottom of Justin Morton. He was close. He couldn't quite get a nose in there. Morton really sending it through the corner. He slid a little bit on the exit of 4. J.R. Shepherd, he's getting little nibbles at the bottom. He's getting a little teensy bit alongside. It's tantalizingly close to being able to hold the bottom and get by. Here he comes. He's going to have a nose ahead, but can Morton keep the run on the high side? He can. Just goes to show how much this track has changed and how much the cars have changed as the tires have worn. Justin Morton really using that longer line to his advantage. And now J.R. Shepherd's got to take advantage of his supposed tire-saving abilities, use the stuff he's got on the bottom and get a run, but right now it's not working just yet. Justin Morton hanging fantastically tough around the outside.
He doesn't want to give up this position, especially knowing that this is valuable points for the Moonshine Challenge. This is valuable for the overall championship as well. J.R. Shepherd nearly cleared it through turn 4. Morton able to gas it back up to keep it side by side, though once more deeper on the brakes. Morton to keep it ahead of Shepherd down the back straight away. As this is going on, Austin Belke has shed Steven Spees to pull away now for 4th position. Lil Jewel shuffled to 6th. But J.R. Shepherd trying to gas it up fully, nearly spun it out, trying to clear himself. Able to get it single file into turn 1.
That was very aggressive. A little bit of a slide up to clear himself on Justin Morton. I think he would have been fine either way, but he gassed it up to be safe and almost completely lost it. See the replay here on board with JR. See him on the bottom. He gets a great run. I'm sure his spotter was telling him clear, 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 and he saved it, but there's a little bit more of a moment that I think he would have wanted.
An incredible save there by Shepherd to prevent that car from pointing towards the inside wall. And now he has to close up 1.2 seconds to Matthew Thunhorst, coming up to 42 laps to go. Easier said than done, but he's already closed up a 10th this lap.
He's got that clean track. He's got to be qualifying laps now. But the problem is his qualifying laps, his fastest practice laps, were exactly the same as Matthew Thunhorst. It was an 18.788 versus an 18.787. So that's not going to give him too much hope for being able to decimate this gap quickly. But he knows he does have pace and he has that clean track. So we'll see if he's actually able to catch Thunhorst. But they have been almost equals for the whole of this race. And I tell you what, it might come down to lap traffic. The drivers, Adam, Shane, Steven, Spees, they're beating and banging for 5th place. It's a short lap here, so if these guys keep going as slow as they're going, we might run into lap traffic if we go green for the rest of the way.
I think you're referring more so towards the gaggle behind the boss man, Lil Jewel, that is also built up for 6th position on the racetrack because he nearly spun across Adam Shane's nose. And now those drivers are lining up behind him, trying to pass on by, all while Shepherd tries to close up that gap and has closed it to 1.05 seconds or so this time by. So multiple different battles are taking place around this racetrack. It's just a matter of, can the drivers manage the tires? The fall off has already reached upwards of 4 to 5 tenths this race.
And Steven Spees, who I mentioned, he must have a lot of tire life left in there because he has absolutely dispatched of that battle that I mistakenly placed him in. He's doing a great job up in 5th, pulling away to the tune of 2.5 seconds from this gaggle for P6, led by Lowell Jewell. We saw him get super loose, almost across the nose of Adam Shane, and luckily they kept it rolling. Joe Segala, he's been trying to make the high side work. Mike Holloway, who we saw in that little bit of an incident earlier, he made his way through with no damage. He's trying to work his way back up through the field. And Todd Liston, Ryan Seneca, a whole bunch of guys trying to make comebacks. They're getting aggressive for the 6th spot and for this 8th spot because they know that if they finish there, they'll be on pole next week.
Especially for that 8th possession, Joe Segala wanting that spot. The boss man, Lil Jewel, now under attack as Mike Holloway moves to the bottom right behind. Segala trying to utilize that bottom line as well, coming up to 34 laps to go. The 19 giving a lot of space, and up the groove he goes. moves Sagawa to 7th. Mike Holloway looking to jump his way up to 8th spot. Able to do so as well for the back straightaway. Just about clear.
Lowell not quite able to make the high side work the same way Orton was. He's lost 1, 2, now 3 spots as Todd Liston goes by. Can he get back down to the bottom? No, because Liston gets super squirrely up ahead. He's still losing the car through 1 and 2. Still getting sideways. Jewel wants the bottom, but if Todd Liston keeps parking the bus down there sideways, he's not going to be able to take it.
He definitely wants to hold on to that position for the points. They still have Adam Shane also in this grouping. Keep in mind, Holloway having a very successful run up, +4 from his starting position outside the inversion spots, entering tonight's race. As now, he's all over the back bumper of Sagawa, forced to check up. Sagawa bobbles, though, as Holloway moves up top. And Sagawa seems all over the racetrack, as that's going to trigger Holloway into the grass. Holloway slides back up, keeps it out of the racing groove as Kurt Smith and several others pass.
A great save down in the grass. I thought he was going to spin across the field here. He might have wished that was a caution, but it was not. You see the 81 get super deep into the corner, into turn 1 here. Holloway was on the back of him through turn 3, and then here the 81 just completely overcooks it, gets out of the groove. Holloway sees the inside. The 81 checks up. He has to check up as well. Takes a little bit of a trip through the grass. All in all, gets it slowed down. No harm, no foul, no damage, but Mike Holloway way further back than he would have liked. He's got a lot of work to do.
Speaking of a lot of work to do, Shepard has done some of that work already to close up the gap to about 0.6 of a second with under 30 laps to go. And Shepard is doing so by chipping away a couple tenths, a couple hundredths sometimes per lap to get back to the 8 machine. So Shepard is flying to try and get himself up there.
We know the raw pace between these two is almost exactly the same, but this difference, it appears to be with J.R. Shepard's tire saving abilities a little bit loose from both of them that lap. I think they about equalized each other. The gap expands to just under 0.7 of a second. They've both completely dispatched of Justin Morton, who is basically in a race of his own. He's got a second ahead, a second behind. He'll bring it home for a podium, it seems, and we go 25 more laps green, but that is a long way to go, and J.R. Shepard is happy that we have a long way to go, because he is just chipping away at this lead little by little every lap, and he thinks he might need a while to make it up, but once he gets up to Thunhorst, it's going to be a whole new question of how do you actually get by? Do you move him out of the groove? Do you hope he makes a mistake once you get within about a tenth or two? It's going to be very interesting to see if he does get up there.
Keep in mind, there was that drag race between these competitors at South Boston that is so memorable between these two. That has birthed this rivalry between these competitors in this series. Both of them evenly matched, both of them quick on the long run, and both of them running in the 19.5s and 6s, coming up to 22 laps to go. They've been able to pull away from Justin Morton, who's in 3rd spot, by more than 2 seconds. The tough part is here, watch the steering wheel. Shepard continues to have to counter steer to the right. Every time he does that, whenever he bobbles a little bit loose, that's where he's losing his time.
Yeah, unfortunately, turn right to go left does not exactly work in the ARCA cars or on pavement 99% of the time. So Shepard moving back a little bit, but the P6 battle, it's still pretty hot. Adam Shane has been leading it for the entirety of the time, but golly, if he is not squeezing everything that car has, he's squeezing the throttle a little bit too much as he gets up high. Todd Liston's going to go to the bottom here, and we'll see if he's able to clear his way into P6.
Liston wraps the bottom. Shane, though, keeps it side by side. Liston nearly lost it. That's how low he was on the groove. He's really snapping loose. Liston drifted his way through turn 1, drifts his way off turn 2 as well. And this is not going to be easy to clear on by with how loose it seems Liston is. It gets easier though that time as Shane goes all the way up next to the wall to try and make that work.
Yeah, Liston might be loose, but Adam Shane is even looser. He was practically running the fence, and he was still fighting that thing to keep it going in a straight line. I thought he would have lost it about 3 times by now. He's trying to get on offense now. He's been on defense for like the last 30 laps. Now he finally has to fight back, see if he can get by Liston. Not working out just yet. He's got a hungry Joe Segala behind him in the 81, but it's a good run from Shane. These guys are moving through different lanes, it seems, every lap. So we'll see if he can capitalize on a Todd Liston mistake in a moment.
Following along with Joe Segala now, he still holds on to 8th position. Lowell Jewell has settled into the 9th position behind him by a couple tenths. And right now, Joe Segala with an opportunity, if he so chooses, to pounce here on Shane, who continues to drift. Problem is, he's under attack now by the boss man. Lowell Jewell to the inside, wants to get inside the inversion spots, keeping it side by side through turn 3. Segala gives him some space though, but Lowell Jewell hits the curbing, pushes him up the racetrack. Kurt Smith joins the fight.
And now it gets interesting because these guys are, well, everybody's fighting for something serious. All the positions matter for points, but this is probably the most important place in the race that isn't the win, because this will start you up front for next week. That was so close, Lowell Jewell to the back of Adam Shane, or Joe Segala, rather. But again, this train has been reunited. We saw them like this a couple laps ago. Then they got separated, but now Adam Shane getting a little bit loose, getting a little bit squirrely and quite a bit slower than some of the drivers behind him. It's checking up this train. Now Segala gets to the bottom. Will he be able to clear Shane? And can Jewell follow him on the bottom and reignite that battle? Big wiggle from Segala.
Really impressive how this fight has fared out, coming up to 12 to go for these competitors. And keep in mind, it's getting so busy that the race leaders are slowly chipping away towards the back end of this pack. They've been able to pull away 3/4 of a racetrack. Shane, though, on the outside. Segala on the inside. Boss man Lowell Jewell thinking about the middle this time. And Shane just about scrapes the wall this time. Lowell Jewell trying to get to the outside of the 81, can't do it.
The thing J.R. Shepard wants the most is for Thunhorse to run into the back of these guys and get held up. Pearson 17 seconds behind the lead right now. With only 10 to go, it's going to be questionable if he'll actually catch the back of Pearson and then to the back of this train, which will absolutely hold you up if you get stuck behind it. Segala, big wiggle. He's going to lose 1, 2, 3, 4 spots potentially with Donnie Moore on the outside. That just goes to show when you're this close, you can't make a mistake because everybody will capitalize on it, and you're going to lose 3 or 4 spots.
Big mistake indeed, but that moves Lowell Jewell into the inversion spot for the pole next week. And it's the question, can he hold on? This has been one of his best races this season, and next week it's at 5 Flags. They will race at, but they are now racing 2x2 once more. Lowell Jewell loose. Mike Holloway now with a chance to dive his way into 8th. Goes to the outside, follows the tire tracks of Shane up the racetrack. Donnie Moore joins the grouping now as well to make it side by side with Segala.
The outside not working yet for Jewell. It's the 19 versus the 2 of Holloway. The outside really working with these tires as old as they are, but he's trying to still make the bottom work. Another big loose moment for Shane. But Holloway still able to get a run, and Segala and Donnie Moore behind, still fighting side by side here. This is getting very aggressive. There's only 5 laps to go, so if you're going to make your move, you're going to need to make it really quick here.
And it looks like Shane's tires are just about gone. We are all approaching point of no return with the race leaders already taking 4 laps to go. This has been a heavy battle, to say the very least, for the inversion spots. Lowell Jewell trying to battle Shane for that 8th spot inside those positions. Still not giving up yet with the 65 drifting off these corners. But it's been impressive what has been going on for some of the air battles, including Justin Morton and Austin Belke. Morton's been able to hold on in front of Belke this entire time, and this is still valuable for the championship. Following on board with Belke for these closing stages, coming up to 2 laps to go this time.
Our leader, Thunhorst, really able to navigate through the lap traffic easily, didn't lose too much. So Belke and Morton, they're not going to be able to join up into that lead pack either, it doesn't seem like. They're fighting for third, but Thunhorst, he's going to take the white flag here. He's not going to have to worry about Donnie Moore, Segala, and the gang who are fighting. I think it'll just be an easy run to the finish for Thunhorst here. He has a buffer, and no challenge behind.
White flag is out, final lap for Matthew Thunhorst. He's been able to extend the lead to more than 1.3 seconds. And for the final turn, he'll break the streak that J.R. Shepard has built in the Moonshine Challenge. Matthew Thunhorst wins at North Wilkesboro.
And
J.R. Shepard third, Justin Morton in third, Joey.
And on the last corner of the last lap, I think Lowell Jewell was able to make the move. He was. Lowell Jewell gets 8th place. He's going to start on pole next week. Great stuff from him on the last lap of the race. Or the second to last lap it might have been for him with how far ahead the leaders were. Either way, great move in the dying moments of the race. Sends it down to the bottom. Shane gets too high, and the one time he didn't need to get high, and Jewell easily up to 8th place.
Second time that Shane went up that high up the racetrack, and it costs him dearly. But for Matthew Thunhorst, he gets the chance to burn it down. He's your winner at North Wilkesboro. Post-race coverage coming up for the BRL's Grand National Series presented by Gargamel's Kitchen. Right after this, you're watching the Global SimRacing Channel from iRacing's virtual North Wilkesboro Speedway. Welcome back to GSRC's coverage of the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series, presented by Gargamel's Kitchen, and what was a competitive race at North Wilkesboro Speedway on iRacing. Matthew Thunhorst came away with the victory, shooting from the second row quickly to the race lead by lap 2, to come away eventually with the checker flag on the long run by 1.4 seconds over Shepard. Morton, Belke, and Spies round out your top 5. Steven Spies going from 11th to 5th in the race. Todd Liston went from 10th to 6th, while Mike Hallway from 12th to 7th. Lil Jewel the Boss Man went from the pole to the final inversion spot, coming to the second to last lap to the white flag, I should say. After Adam Shane drifted up the racetrack, Donnie Moore, Joe Segala rounded out the top 10 this evening, Joey.
And unfortunately, Adam Shane just plummeted out of the top 10 at the end, down into 11th. Bruce Pearson, Ryan Seneker ended up as the only drivers one lap down, wondering if they may have wanted to take that faster pair. And Kurt Smith, we didn't see what happened to him, but he brought it down to pit road at the end. But with us in the booth now, Justin, I believe you have Justin Morton. It's Justin and Justin.
Yes, indeed. Justin Morton coming away with the third place finish, able to hold off Austin Belkey. Justin, first things first. How do you feel coming home in third tonight from 6th to 3rd?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. Had a really good start there. I was hoping to stay with Matt for longer, but I've never had great pace at this track. I don't know what it is with North Wilkesboro. It's never clicked with me. I'm pretty happy with third. Austin made me pretty nervous there at the end.
What was it like trying to battle the tire wear? Because it seemed drivers, especially towards the mid-pack, were battling with the right rear tire. What was that like for you this evening to try and save your tires in this one, Justin?
Yeah, it's really rough. I found it rough to save at this track because when you're exiting 4, you're almost coming over a crest that makes you really want to spin your tires. So you got to be pretty careful on the throttle. I may have been a little too safe because I noticed that's where I was losing a ton of time to JR and Matt. So maybe I was just driving something wrong. I was definitely feeling that right rear wear though.
Now the next race goes over to Five Flags. Your thoughts on that racetrack? In a good position, Justin?
Yeah, I should be in a great starting position for the race, being in front of Matt and JR, so it should be good. It'll be great practice for when the majors come here in a few weeks, or I guess it's a few months actually, but yeah, it should be good, fun.
Good point indeed, involving that with one of the wildcard rounds, believe, at that point. But anyone you want to thank for your run tonight, Justin?
Yeah, I'd like to thank my team, Toll Downforce Racing. Love running with the group, great guys. Thanks to Gargamel's Kitchen for jumping in and sponsoring us for this season. We really appreciate it. Welcome. And thank you guys for doing the great broadcast every week. Really enjoy it.
Once again, that's Justin Morton coming away in third position tonight in this one. Joey Tebben now has the opportunity to stand by with the driver who came away in second position, and that driver this evening is J.R. Shepard.
Yeah, J.R. Shepard came down to the last couple laps with that lap traffic, but second place, a solid run from 7th place. What do you think the key was to moving up the grid like he did today?
Just being extremely patient. Yeah, being able to finish second tonight was higher than what my expectations were at lap 3 of the race. I could not catch a break on any of the starts or restarts, it seems like. So, yeah, I knew once Matt and Justin were leading the race by lap 3 that they were going into tire savings mode, and the rest of us were going to have to race each other. So that was the key. I was extremely patient for the first half of the race, and then I had to race people like Justin and fun racing him. But yeah, it wore the tires out for sure. So that made the difference, I think.
And it seemed like as the cars wore out, as the tires wore out, and as the track wore in, the outside line seemed to be working better than the outside. Did you notice in the car, at least, that the groove of the track was changing over the course of the race?
Yeah, definitely. You could make the outside work for sure, especially if you were side by side. It was going to be the preferred line as long as you didn't overdrive the entry. So I tried to keep it on the bottom just to try to save the tires. For whatever reason, it helps me save the tires a little bit better running that line. And the last 15 laps, I was really trying to save them because I was hoping for a caution to come out, so we'd at least have an opportunity for a chance to race for the lead. But yeah, just a very clean race tonight. Only 2 cautions, so it was a really nice race.
And I think I may have seen you get in the wall a little bit. Maybe in the middle of the race. Did you get any damage from that? Any noticeable damage?
No, there was no damage. I was trying some different lines, trying to learn something in case I got close enough to Matt to race, and just misjudged the exit of the corner a little bit and just kind of scraped the wall, but it didn't affect the car any at all.
Yeah, it looks like you got away with it. You have anyone you want to thank for your second place finish tonight before we get you out of here?
Yeah, just big thanks to the Bootleg Racing League, allowing us to do this on Friday nights and Saturday nights. So that's really awesome. And thanks to my team, Different Path Motorsports, Tim Belkey came in fourth place tonight, so had a great run there too for us. And big shout out to you guys at GSRC. We appreciate what you guys do for us.
And we appreciate you guys putting on the show for us to call. J.R. Shepard, your second place finisher tonight. But the big man, the big winner, Matthew Thunhorst, joining us in the booth now with Justin.
Yes, indeed. And Matthew, you put on a clinic, taking the lead on lap 2. What was it like out there, putting on that blistering pace, especially pulling away in the final 50 laps or so by 1.4 seconds?
I mean, I might have pulled away, but they're on that restart after JR got around Justin, and I just saw him taking 10th out of 10th out. I'm like, oh no. And then I started experimenting with my lines in a 1 and 2. But yeah, I mean, I had the advantage of starting well and getting to the front early, so I didn't have to burn my stuff up. But, you know, I mean, it feels good to be able to put on a performance like this, you know, and again, like I said, I was getting worried there about lap 70 or something, and I just saw JR just slowly creeping on me, and I went, oh no, here we go. So, nah, it was nice to get out the lead pretty quick. It was nice just to be able to control the race like I did, and you know, I mean, I might have pulled away, but I don't think it told the full story of this race. So, but either way, it's definitely a very rewarding feeling.
You're right on that with especially how things played out in this race. Of course, the importance of tire saving, we talked a bit about it with Justin Moore, and he said it was very difficult to do. What was that like for you when you went into that tire saving mode that J.R. Shepard noticed when you took that lead?
Well, I mean, the nice thing was that we had just run the trucks right before this, and the ARCA cars felt like a dream driving the trucks because those things were just extremely tight. So I took a lot what I learned from the trucks, and I just had to work on my lines through 1 and 2 a little bit more to get that straight fire off. But, you know, probably about lap 60, I found some really good marks for 1 and 2, and it really allowed me to save the tires, you know, instead of having, you know, the car kick sideways wildly like I normally do with doing these things. I might have had a little wiggle. So, you know, it was driving within my means. It was more important hitting my marks because every time I got a little distracted, you know, I'd make a mistake. So it's just staying really locked in. So, you know, just driving what I had. You know, if you overdrive, tires give up, and then the next thing you know, you're getting passed. So that was the one thing I wanted to avoid.
Curious on this as well, because you're in the midst of the championship battle. You can also throw Austin Belkey into the mix, because right now, you, Justin, JR, and Austin are covered by about a 7-point spread. You are third in the standings after the first couple races or so of the season. Your thoughts on the parity this season between the field this season, because especially you, Morton, and Shepard have been on top of one another each of these rounds so far, with Belkey close behind.
Well, I just think now that, you know, none of us have drop races, they're starting on a partial schedule. You're just seeing kind of what was happening, you know, last season kind of just play out fully now. And, you know, with the points and everything being awarded and all of us doing all the races so far, you're seeing what was happening last season, and it's playing out fully in front of your eyes and the points and the standings and stuff. So, you know, I mean, it's nice, you know, to see that we're doing so well, and it's nice to see that, you know, we're putting on good races. And, you know, I suspect, especially speaking of Austin, that you're going to be seeing him more and being able to interview him more, because he might have only gotten fourth tonight, but I believe the late models he ended up winning tonight. So I wouldn't count him out either. He might not be podium every time, but he's starting to become that sneaky fast, and he might become real fast here soon, even though he won't say it, but you know, you can tell he's been getting better as well. So it's just nice to see we're all kind of raising each other up. You know, rising tide, as they say, raises all ships.
Great point indeed. After all, Austin Belkey did come away with a couple championships outside the Grand National Series last season in BRL competition. Anyone you want to thank for your run tonight?
Yeah, just a lull for the league. I absolutely enjoy the pieces running in this league and doing it every Saturday night. And I appreciate you all for bringing it to the folks and recording it for us. And and I had a lot of fun. We added a new person to our team speak. Now we brought Austin in. So if anyone ever thought me and Justin were talking team speak, our teammate stuff, it's just more we're all shooting the breeze, and now Austin's side getting the fun too. So we had a blast doing that to Noel's night.
Interesting here indeed that you have Austin Belkey now involved in that grouping as well. Very successful indeed. Congratulations on the victory.
Thank you much.
Matthew Thunhorst with a very informative and great interview. I'd like to thank him with J.R. Shepard and Justin Morton for joining us here for post-race coverage. Now, Joey, your final thoughts on this race, because it was an intriguing one, and as Matthew pointed out, while at first glance you'd see the dominating performance in terms of the interval, the race itself wasn't exactly a cakewalk, as he would tell you.
And it went by quick. There wasn't that much time in total for drivers to make move, but if you just look at the raw box score, 4th to 1st, 7th to 2nd, 6th to 3rd, 5th to 4th, 11th to 5th, 10th to 6th, and it goes on. The whole field basically flipped on its head. It was a very exciting race. Lots of moving and grooving and sliding and lots of stuff going on. Packed in 35 minutes. Great stuff from the BRL, as always.
And how do you feel a track like Five Flags will challenge these drivers for the next round coming up?
Well, these the admins of the Bootleg Racing League, they love to pick some of the tougher tracks, some of the tougher short tracks. So we go from this to Five Flags. It's a little bit smaller, I believe, a little bit tighter, but I believe just as challenging as this track. So we'll see how they adapt to that next week. And as we've seen this week, they can put on a good race anywhere. So I think it'll be pretty solid.
On that note, we'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's exciting action from the virtual North Wilkesboro Speedway. We'd also like to thank the Bootleg Racing League for organizing this exciting series, as well as Gargamel's Kitchen, Bootleg nitrous oxide supplier, who is the title sponsor of this series. We'd like to thank the companies who provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed on your screen. Additional thanks to Jude Long, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of our great work. Thanks to the team today in Joey and Sean. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can check out our merchandise for sale at gsrc.stormvy.com. Or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Don't forget to head over to YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button, as well as the notification bell, so you don't miss a moment here at the Global SimRacing Channel. As talked about, the next race goes to Five Flags Speedway. That's on Saturday, July the 24th. Coverage starts at approximately 8:50 p.m. Eastern Time. Green flag scheduled approximately 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch that once more here on GSRC. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on your screen as well, so check those out and mark them down your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.